Live from a NASCAR bunker in Kyle's parents' basement, it's Turn the Radio Off with Mike Parsons and Kyle Bauer.
A fan at Facebook.com/TTRO Show. Follow along on Twitter.com/TTRO Show. Or just listen right now. It's Turn the Radio Off.
I don't know if you know this, Kyle, but Prince is dead. Do you know how I know Prince is dead?
How, Mike?
Because over the weekend, just about anyone who plays music professionally opened their show with their own cover of Purple Rain.
They've also been showing it at a bunch of the movie theaters locally here.
Yeah, it's coming up at the Redford. Are you going to that?
No, I got to work late.
Oh, that stinks.
Yeah, unfortunately. I can't make it, but I think they're showing it at the Henry Ford, too, now, and they're showing it, I think they're going to be showing it at other theaters, which is good. That's a great film. Apollonius tits. I think one time, for some reason, you and I were randomly at my old apartment in Warren, and Purple Rain came on, and then I fell asleep, and then I woke up, and I think I said you had to leave. Oh, well, that sounds like something that would happen, but I don't remember that.
I remember.
Might have blocked it from memory.
Well, unless I was asleep, I was dreaming.
Yeah, your apartment from Warren. Yeah, those were crazy times.
Yeah.
Was that 2011?
2010 to 2012, which, that's almost half a decade ago already.
We were living right by each other. That was weird.
Yeah, it was.
Because you were so busy, because at the time I think you were working like 80 hours a week.
Yeah.
So we still didn't see each other. We see each other now more that we live a good solid half hour, 45 minutes away from each other.
Well, and you know what? I've noticed now that I've lived downriver kind of a half hour away from everyone, I actually see people more often now because I have to make the effort. Back when I was living in town, I was like, whatever.
You were also working 6 jobs.
That's true. I was working 6 jobs, and I started my own transportation company, which turned into Uber.
Yes, but unfortunately you sold all your stock when it was still worth quarters.
Right.
Yeah, it was. You sold it for about 75 cents on the share.
Yeah, I needed a new TV right away, and I said this idea is not going to take off.
But Mike, I was actually concerned for your health at that point.
Yeah,
because you were just working so much.
I was much fatter too.
Yes, which is weird. I figure you wouldn't have time to eat, but
no, I only had time to eat garbage.
Oh,
that's why.
It was all sedentary stuff too.
Right,
it wasn't like you were working on you were a lineman for the county or anything like that.
Now that I'm working like a regular schedule during the week, I'm doing a lot more white people stuff, like going to the gym.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah,
that's good. Yeah, you got brunch coming up.
I might like a nice brunch every now and then.
Brunch and board games?
Yep. Perhaps a mimosa.
That's one of the funniest white people things I've noticed that's popped up in the past 5 years is that whatever brewery or gastropub you go to, there's board games somewhere.
Is there?
Oh yeah, that's like a common occurrence. Everywhere communal seating. You always have to sit next to people that you don't know.
I hate that.
Okay, and don't get me wrong. I don't mind interaction.
Is it, Kyle? Is it because in our society we're so connected to our devices that human interaction just goes by the wayside?
Oh no, I'm a fan of human interaction. I am. And
I could take it or leave it.
I'm going to get to that later in the show. But what I'm saying is that when I'm eating, or when I'm on a date with my girlfriend, and oftentimes we're talking about our bodily functions.
Right.
That takes up about 97% of our conversations with each other.
Right. You're planning the tantric that you guys are going to be doing for the next 6 hours.
One of us smells. Which is it, and from what body part is it coming from?
My guess it's you and every orifice.
It's about a 50-50 split.
It's like I was sitting there with you guys.
Well, I'm just saying, And in those moments, I don't want to be sitting next to Austin and I don't know, Janelle?
Dallas with a Y. Dallys.
I don't care for I don't want to be communal. I don't want these people, we're all in a space together.
Yeah.
We're
No.
all in a space eating our pommes frites.
No, I want to go to a big boy where I have a booth.
$16 or market price.
Yeah, right. Well, there's a new gastropub that just opened next to us, and the thing about gastropubs, except for the fact that it's just a restaurant that with a 20% markup. If you go to these gastropubs websites and you look at their menu, there's no price.
Yeah.
I am not.
They got to get you in the door.
Yeah. You know what? I'm not going to your restaurant if A, there's no menu online, and B, that menu doesn't have prices.
You know what that markup is? It's to pay for that Connect 4 they had to buy.
Yeah. Or it's to ship from farm to table, because you would think farm to table would be a much more direct route, but I guess it's not.
It makes no sense because at the Eastern Market, the farm to table, so to speak, or buying it directly from the farmer cuts out the middleman.
Right.
And you're paying reduced prices because of that.
Right. You'd think that, and then they would pass the savings on to us. Less board games, more savings.
It's all about the board games.
I think
because if the one thing white people can't stand is not having board games to play
right.
while waiting for their artisanal chicken and waffles.
I think in 5 years, when people are sick of gastropubs, I think there'll be a market for anti-gastropubs.
I believe that too, and you've already there's a couple places that have already tried to do it, like why the hell? I don't know. There's a diner in Detroit that opened not too long. I can't remember the name of it.
Just comfort. Yeah, just serve comfort food.
Right,
and deep fry it.
There are places that are already trying to do that, or like trying to mock the dive bar. Like One Eye Betty's is a hot spot in Ferndale, and that's always a place that is like a mock dive bar, even though they're pretty much all craft beer and liquor.
I was going to say One Eyed Betty's. I always thought that was quite gastropub in itself.
I was going to say yes, but the whole idea from it is supposed to be some hard ass hole in the wall bar.
Yeah.
But everything is American pub fare, Ameripub fare,
yeah.
Ameripub fare. There we go. It's Ameripub.
It's more like an asshole pub.
Well, I was funny because you bring this up, and me and the aforementioned girlfriend yesterday, she had a rare weekend off, and the weather was kind of nice yesterday. So she's just like, let's go somewhere. Let's go to Toledo.
Right.
And then I got a little nervous. We were running short on time, so we settled on Monroe.
Yep.
Okay, Monroe, which is actually about 20 minutes north of Toledo.
Yeah.
I really should have just drove the extra 20 minutes. Anyway, so we're talking about the far, deep southeastern Michigan recesses here.
And the thing is, Monroe looks a lot nicer driving through it than walking around. Like, you think, here's a cute downtown. There's probably a lot of shops, lots of restaurants, and there's an old whipping post, and that's about it.
Yes, that's right. The old whipping post.
Yeah.
You know what? She would have enjoyed that. I should have took her to see that, but I forgot about it. We've been in Monroe a couple times.
And if Donald Trump is elected our next president,
that whipping post is going to be back to work.
Oh yeah. I mean, we don't have to worry.
We're safe.
Yeah, we're white.
But the brown people.
Well, not you, Kyle, because see, I was raised Catholic, so I can fake it. But yeah,
right.
Yeah.
Well, I was going to say yes, right there in the face of the Custer statue. Anyway,
yeah. Monroe says it's the hometown of Custer. He lived there for like 8 months.
Well. So I was trying to sell her on the Civil War history, but sure enough, we're looking at places to eat once we drive down there, and another public house place comes up. Now, these public house places are all around. There's one by Ferndale. There's one up in Utica. And the whole idea of the public house is basically to be a gastropub.
Right.
Fancy food, marked up, or, cheap, I don't know, like cheap comfort food, but made with fancy words. Fries aren't fries, they're frites.
Right. With truffles.
Yes, there's truffle somewhere. There's truffle somewhere on the menu.
Kyle, pretty much the only safe place left to eat is going to be Chili's.
I love Chili's, but listen to this, Mike. So my Whitey radar goes off, and I'm like, yeah, sure, whatever. Let's go to that place. It got good reviews. I don't know, menu sounds good. Yeah, sure, why not? So we go there, and I realized that this public house was in a former Big Boy.
What?
Yes!
Blasphemy. I would have.
Only in Monroe.
Kyle, I'm not a violent person, but I think I would have flipped the table and left.
Well, I could tell because the sign was in the shape of the old Elias Brothers Big Boy sign. And so they had public house place sign. And one of the funniest things was they had the old, kind of, I don't know, eggplant-colored tile floor.
Right. Oh, yeah.
That you recognize in all the big boys, but all the rest of the decor was trying to look, new Ameripub.
Yeah.
Or, contemporary Ameripub. Serving Northeastern fare.
If I walk into what I think is a Big Boy, and my Big Boy sandwich is 100% Kobe-fed beef, and it's topped with kale, and it's marked up to $15 because it's farm to table, I'm going to cut somebody.
She got a $12 meatloaf sandwich.
Yeah. You know what? And I bet you at Big Boy that would have been $8.99.
Probably.
$8.99.
But I've always made the argument Big Boy is a little overpriced. One thing me and you differ on is Big Boy. You love Big Boy. Me, I could take or leave it.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh.
I've never been impressed. I've always been a National Coney Island guy.
That's fine, too. You know what? It's all about the Thousand Island dressing. You know what else I'm pissed off about, Kyle?
What?
I'm reading all this stuff about the new Beyonce album, and I can't find it because I don't have a subscription to anything.
That's a fair point. What? How was an album released on HBO? I don't understand what happened.
She put out this album called Lemonade, and I guess it's it's very scathing, and it's about infidelity. So everyone thinks it's her and Jay-Z are having trouble. But look, the only place you could get it for 24 hours was on Jay-Z's streaming site Tidal. Okay, if she was mad at him, she would have released it on Spotify. And then she also released every single video on HBO. Now, if you're Beyonce, this works. But I think what's happening here, Kyle, is that a lot of these big artists, they're trying to push back against the streaming services and everything. And I think there's only a couple people who are big enough to do it. I think 5-10 years ago, Beyonce, like when she first dropped her secret album, and it only worked because she was Beyonce, she didn't have a whole lot of mainstream hits off of that album. So
Drunk in Love was a pretty big hit, I thought.
Yeah, but I don't think it wasn't as ubiquitous as Single Ladies.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying there. Yeah.
So I think what's happening, and I know it's Jay-Z. He's trying to take the music business back for the artists, and I get that, but I think unless you're at the very, very top of your game, you do stuff like this at your own peril. Talking about Prince, hearkening back to Prince, who just passed away. His career sort of declined after the mid to late 90s when the internet started taking rise because Prince was very anti-internet. And it would make sense because, okay, you got your stuff out there, you poured your blood, sweat, and tears in that. You don't want people you don't want people getting it for free.
Yeah, and I mean, it's his music, it's his property. He does have the right to do with it what he wants.
But, you kind of see what happened. He became a heritage jack, essentially, because he didn't really have any big hits after the dawning of the internet.
And I agree with that point too. I was talking with a friend of mine, and I was really making the point, and he actually kind of got offended by it, but I think it's true. Prince, we really haven't gotten Prince in our generation. I mean, like, we know Prince. We like his music. We like his music from the 80s, from Controversy to
I remember
up to the Batman soundtrack. But after that, he started really making a lot of his music. He signed that exclusivity deal with Target.
Yeah.
He made sure none of his music wound up online. So everything was very difficult to find, and I think it made it hard for people to connect with the act. And now you're hearing about the pushback from Kanye. When he put his album out on Spotify, on Tidal, everybody's saying, oh, well, I'm not going to get Tidal just to hear Kanye. Yeah, well, guess what? I'm going to have to torrent it. Yeah, guess torrents are coming back. And, there are all these think pieces on Slate and Mike.com and all those other fucking whatever. Anyway, saying, Has Kanye brought back the illegal downloading?
Yeah. I mean, look, I see what Jay-Z's trying to do, right? I mean, he said, okay, well, Beyonce's huge, Kanye's huge. What we're going to do is we're going to use it as the carrot at the end of the stick to get people excited from Tidal. And I'll be very interested to see what, what Beyonce's sales numbers are, because the day after you could buy it on iTunes and Amazon and everything, and how many views the videos got on HBO, because eventually you're going to have to release that video if you want it to get views. Like when Hotline Bling first came out on Apple, he had an exclusivity deal with Apple that said that Hotline Bling the video would only be on Apple on Apple Music for however long. Well, he had enough views on it to have a number one single, but Billboard or whoever collects that data, they don't take that into account. So he was actually robbed of his first number one single based on stuff like this. And, if you're an artist and you're willing to make that sacrifice, that's fine. But I think that that horse is out of the barn.
Yeah, and you got Adele and Taylor Swift doing it the traditional way, and they're out selling,
right.
2 million copies.
But if Taylor Swift in 3 years, she doesn't have as big of a hit as she did with Shake It Off, it's going to be to her detriment. It's not going to be a power move by her anymore.
Yeah, but here's the thing that gets me, and I'll always be on the fence about this, because just like what I said with Prince, he, as an artist, this is his material. Yeah. He can do what he wants with it.
Oh, and I'm not knocking it. I'm just telling you the cause and effect.
Same with Beyonce and Jay-Z and Kanye. If they have a deal with Tidal, this is how they want their music released. Whatever. A lot of artists aren't big enough to get autonomy over that. I mean, us being fans of the pop-punk era and the early to mid-aughts, how many of those bands ended up making zero money because of crooked record labels like Victory Records?
Yeah, Drive-Thru, yeah.
And Drive-Thru. And you hear all those horror stories about these guys and girls who worked very hard, and they ended up getting nothing to show for it. Yeah. And, and they basically burned out 5-6 years of their lives. Obviously, that's not the case. We're dealing with a different class of musician. But at the same time, the other part of me feels like, no, screw you. It's like you're putting your stuff out into the public record. You're a platinum-selling artist, and people want to hear your music. You've already developed that fan base and that crowd. Put it out on a platform that's available to everybody instantly.
Right. Well, and who I see as being a big, I don't want to say victim, but has been affected by this the most. Probably the biggest rock band of all time, the Beatles. I see stuff all over the place, whether it be a meme or someone complaining about, I was at the well, not the music store, but I was out with my kids and they were listening to Justin Bieber and I wanted to put the Beatles on and they didn't know who the Beatles are. I'm scared for this generation. Well, the Beatles, they're not easy to find on Spotify. I don't know about Pandora. They just put their stuff on iTunes 5-10 years ago.
Yeah, and actually it didn't come to Apple Music despite that deal that they had with iTunes.
Right.
Didn't come to Apple Music because Apple Music, because I have Apple Music, and it ends up merging with your iTunes.
Yeah.
Right? Yet for some reason, the Beatles deal with iTunes didn't translate over to Apple Music, and the Beatles didn't get their music didn't get on Apple Music until I think 4 months ago.
Right. So if you're not where young people are consuming and discovering music, it's not really on them, because it's like it's like saying kids these days don't know how to drive a horse and buggy. Well, they've never had to use a horse and buggy, all right? They've used automobies, and they use Spotify. And if you're not on that, they're not going to know who you are.
And also, always to that point, for as much bitching as I hear the gray hairs do about, oh, well, they don't know about Led Zeppelin, or they don't know about the Beatles, or, now even I'm hearing Guns N' Roses because they're making their big comeback tour.
And when they were teenagers,
we're hearing folks 10 years older than us saying, well, they don't know about Nirvana or Guns N' Roses. Actually, I think a lot of them do. They still like Justin Bieber, but they've heard you playing the damn music in the car, and they know about it, but they're kids, so they're going to have different tastes. Well, they're not going to have the same taste as somebody who's 48 years old.
Well, and there's this fake Slash meme going around talking about like him blasting One Direction.
And all the Dave Grohl memes that we've already talked about on the show too.
Well, number one, the Slash meme uses the word especially, which isn't a word. And number two, you know what? I'm not. No disrespect to Slash on this, because this was a fake meme, and Slash is a victim here of being misquoted. But okay, all you Guns N' Roses fans, if you became a Guns N' Roses fan as a teenager, that was 30 years ago.
Right.
So when you were listening to Guns N' Roses, that would be like someone posting a meme 30 years ago of Chubby Checker talking about how bad Guns N' Roses are. So how hip and relevant do you think you're coming off?
Exactly, and that's why all this is dumb. But I still think that a big key for a lot of these musicians, no matter where they're at in their career, is to get as much of their music out there as they possibly can. Now, I guess when I say, I can't exactly say no matter where they're at in their career, because I think if you're at a certain point, you transcend, and to where you don't have to worry about getting your slice of the pie.
Right.
Obviously there are a lot of musicians, I alluded to it a few minutes ago, that worked their asses off for 5-10 years and didn't see a dime out of it. But we're not so much talking about up and coming artists as much as the Beyoncés.
Right. If you're coming up, if you're not a Beyonce level, it probably benefits you to have your stuff available to everyone online.
I think it should benefit all. I think it should benefit all musicians. I know Taylor Swift had a big issue with this too. The whole beef that she had with Spotify and all this.
She's still not on Spotify either.
Yeah, I know, but it's funny because that's a case where someone was trying to get their music to become more available. Although I think she was upset about the amount that they were paying her for the royalties on it.
Right. I mean, I know why they do it, and I might do the same thing. All I'm saying is that long term, it may not be the best strategy.
Right. Well, think about this, Mike. And this is something that I know will tickle those nostalgia, or pluck those nostalgia strings for you. Is think about Michael Jackson. When Michael Jackson back in the day used to debut a song, it was on network TV.
Yeah.
He would have like a mini movie to go along with it. I mean, it was basically a short film for his music videos.
Yeah, black and white, debuted between Fresh Prince and Blossom.
Yeah, well, and there was also, and it was on NBC. I remember that.
Yeah.
It was a big event.
Yeah.
I was like, 5 years old?
Yeah.
And I still remembered it?
Yeah, me too.
And that's the thing. It was accessible to everyone. You didn't have to pay anything to hear the song for the first time. Whereas nowadays you got Beyonce, who isn't as big as Michael Jackson was back then, but she's probably the closest thing we're going to get to it.
Yeah, I mean, she's top 5 biggest artists in the world.
For sure. And with that, it's having it be on HBO, and what's a cable bill nowadays? Over $100 easy.
Right.
And also Tidal, $20 a month?
Yeah.
Somewhere around there. I mean, you're talking about this being outside the means of a lot of people being able to afford it. And there's something about that I just don't think is kosher. So that's, again, where I always go back and forth. It's like part of me thinks, well, if she feels this is best for her career and this is the best way for her to get her money and help, then fine, it's her music. She should be able to do that. But then another part of me is like, there's a lot of fans who would love to get that first taste of Beyonce, and they can't because they just don't have the money to pay for HBO or Tidal.
Well, and see, that's why I'm not saying whether it's right or wrong. I'm just saying if it's an effective strategy or not. And I think that in the moment, yes, but she can't continue to do this with all of her albums, because eventually you become less and less relevant.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying, but I mean, who knows where the trends are going to go? To think, I guess it's kind of heading in a direction a lot of people forecast it, but still, who's going to forecast where it's going to be at 3, 4, 5 years from now? It's constantly evolving.
Let's turn the radio off on the internet.
Less rock, more talk. Turn the radio off.
Become a fan at peoplehatemypodcast.com.
Attention! Your gym teacher escaped from charm school, irons his underwear, watches hygiene films. He says, anyone chewing bubble tape owes me 50 push-ups. The lunch lady wears a hairnet, serves mashed potatoes with an ice cream scoop, puts gravy on everything. She says,
bubble tape is not part of a well-balanced diet.
Bubble tape, it's 6 feet of bubble gum for you, not them.
So, let me repeat your order here. That'll be 1 double cheeseburger, ching. Large fries, no large soda, ching. 2 kids meals and 2 medium sodas, ching. 1 chicken sandwich, large fries, and a vanilla milkshake, bada bing. That'll be $62.75. We're a little shy.
Remember when you could feed your whole family fast food for less than $10? Well, at Rally's, you still can. Rally's has it right.
Turn the radio off. Tell your friends about us. Make them like us on Facebook.
I am not sure if we are broadcasting properly.
Turn the radio off. Online and worldwide. TTROshow.com.
So the Kmart/Sears death prognosis, they came late this year. Usually you read those at the end of every year, because at the end of every year, if you're like me, old-fashioned, and still use Yahoo email.
Companies that won't survive 2016.
Yep, and now it's a slideshow.
Yeah.
So it'll always say companies that may not survive till next year. And on this list, Kyle, since at least 2011...
before that, and we're going back to like 2008.
You know what? You could be right, but I'm confident in saying at least 2011 and even further behind. Back before the ways of the internet wasn't a slideshow, back when the companies that wouldn't make it were just listed, it has always been Sears/Kmart Holdings or whatever the name of the parent company, and damn it, they're still here. But there's been another round of mass store closings, and Kyle, as someone like you who loves Sears, I think when you get married, you'll honeymoon for 3 days at Sears.
Maybe the standalone one across the street from your house. Those are pretty rare.
Maybe it's got its own water tower. I mean, you guys can crash down here in the basement in the Beat Factory. It's got to feel like you're getting deep paper cuts every time you see one of these stories come through.
Well, what really hurts is recently, it's not the prognosis or the diagnosis or however you want to put it. It would be the hit pieces that come out afterwards celebrating the impending demise. So many people apparently have been traumatized in a Sears before. Okay, I guess there are people who have been molested. There are people who have been assaulted physically. There are people who have been, abandoned by their parents in Sears.
Is this it? Are these exclusively Sears problems? It sounds like this could happen
Apparently
anywhere.
It is, because there's a lot of people who are really relishing in the demise of a great American institution.
You know where Sears went wrong, Kyle? When they stopped selling build-your-own houses.
Oh,
that was the turning point back in 1940.
Yeah, and also they were only selling those to white people. Oh, it's kind of a dark.
Oh, really? I didn't know.
Yeah.
And this is the company that you love, David Dukes.
Okay. All right, but that was in the past. Sears atoned for their mistakes.
Welcome to Turn the Radio Off with Mike and the Grand Wizard.
Sears atoned for their mistakes, and they continued to build upon this great nation, setting a retail economy that drove this country through the recession and the gas and the oil crisis of the 1970s
didn't they put
into
a lot
the
of,
80s.
Wait, didn't they destroy a lot of small towns? Weren't they Walmart before Walmart?
They weren't Walmart before Walmart. They were a job creator.
Your mom and pop tire store, they couldn't compete with their selection and low prices, so they had to close shop, and old Pa, who owned owned the tire store had to go work at the Sears Auto Center for minimum wage.
No, Sears has always paid competitive wages. That's a damn lie.
Oh, that's the excuse. Hey, boss, can I have a raise? No. What you're getting paid is competitive with market prices, which is minimum wage.
Actually, they do operate on a lot of Randian fundamentals.
I don't know what that means.
Ayn Rand.
Oh, Ayn Rand, yeah.
Ayn Rand.
Right.
Yeah, I always pronounce it Ann because I don't really care. Anyway, yeah. No, they were taken over by a bunch of Tea Partiers that have been looking to cut costs, and maybe that's kept them from doing sensical things like adding Apple products, and
tablets.
Yes, right, and other kind of newer technology. But the point is that you still get customer service and
That's
hometown
true.
values at your Sears.
That's true. Remember that one time we went and because I was going to buy a lawnmower offline, and you got
from Walmart's website,
right?
Nonetheless,
and you got pissed and said, "Mike,
I was furious. I called you part of the problem.
I will burn down your house.
You were scum to me in that moment.
I will put a pox on your descendants if we don't go to Sears right now." So we went down to Sears.
And that goose hissed at us?
Yeah.
There was a goose right by the entrance.
Right.
And the goose hissed at us.
Right, which if this was Salem, you would be burned for witchcraft, and that would
bizarre.
be the evidence.
That was bizarre.
I said Kyle bewitched a goose because he's mad at me for shopping low prices on Walmart.com.
It was ominous. It was an ominous sign.
And so I went to buy a lawnmower, and the sales lady essentially told me that the lawnmower was garbage, and I didn't buy the lawnmower. They lost the sale, but I appreciated her honesty.
Exactly, and that's the type of human approach that you get.
That's the business model: brutal honesty to drive away customers.
When you go to Sears, you get honesty. You get people with integrity, okay? And now, here's the problem that I have. You have so many folks who seem to be tap dancing on the idea of retail in general. The thought that, oh, wow, we're going to have to actually get up and go to a mall or go to a store and talk to other people. And we're going to have to talk to people who think they know more than us about stuff we don't really know anything about. I'm telling you, this is the condition, Mike.
I'm trying to follow you. Wait, so you're saying that
I'm saying that people don't want to talk to people anymore.
So they
don't want to have any human interaction. They're too lazy to get in their car and drive 5-10 minutes to wherever.
That's what you're saying the demise of Sears is.
Partially. Well, I'm not saying that there's not stuff that Sears has. There is mistakes that Sears has made.
Do you think that the public house could be Sears' only salvation? Because at public house, you have to interact with people, and that'll bring back the practice that people want to get back from behind their computers and go buy themselves a tube TV from Sears.
So you're saying Sears should set up communal tables with board games?
Perhaps they should have a farm-to-table food court.
You know, Macy's has a food court, and Macy's is still kind of doing okay.
Yeah. You know, that's weird. You would think that if Sears is going under, JCPenney would be going under.
Well, no, JCPenney is going under. JCPenney's in worse shape than Sears, actually.
Oh.
Yeah.
So Macy's is the only one that's not going under.
And even then, they've lost millions and millions of dollars, but they're still very profitable. You know, like they're still turning over $1 billion in profit and like doing fine. But no, like seriously though, getting back to it, I really it bothers me. And I always use Sears as just kind of my example because it's a place that holds great nostalgia for me because when Dad wanted to go buy tools, where did he go? Sears. When I needed a Christmas gift for Dad, where did I go? Sears.
If you wanted to go sit on a display room riding lawnmower, where would you go?
Sears.
When I was shopping as a 3-year-old with my dad, and said, "Don't worry about it, Dad. I don't need to go to the bathroom." He turns around and sees me peeing in a display toilet. Where was I?
Sears.
Sears.
Where did I buy my mini fridge?
Sears?
Yes.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Where did I buy my TV upstairs? ABC Warehouse.
But that's not bad, though.
But that's nothing against Sears.
Right.
I see what you're saying. Kyle, if this woman who talked me out of this my lawnmower was monitoring the lead levels in Flint's drinking water, the Flint Water Crisis would not have happened.
No, it wouldn't have, because you would have had the honesty or integrity of a Sears salesperson. I'm just saying, Mike, I know we're about to switch gears here, but I just want to make one more point that I believe, as somebody who's worked in retail and worked in sales for many years, that the interaction you get with the person, getting to talk with the person, getting to interact with them, getting to know their story, being able to relate with them, empathize for them, it's all a part of the experience of being a human. And I don't like the idea of people laughing at brick-and-mortar stores and how they're failing and how they're shutting down, whether they be Sears or whatever, because people are losing jobs.
When online shopping first became big, like the first time Cyber Monday was in the news, and us as a society discovered that online shopping was relevant, I said to myself, no way am I going to get to online shopping. I like going out. I like to leave the house. And now I buy all my stuff online. I
do a little bit of online shopping. I mean, things that I know I can't find in stores, I will buy online. Right. But there's still, I would say most of the stuff, probably 90% of the stuff I buy.
Because right now in April
is in stores.
Right now in April, when I think of shopping for Christmas presents, it's like a Christmas story. I imagine myself in a mall that's decorated.
I'm a big fan of the Sears Christmas displays.
And it smells of cinnamon and caramel and caramel. And people are jolly and skipping around filled with the Christmas spirit. Now come Black Friday, and I see the lines on TV. I said, hell no, I'm not going to the mall. I'm buying my shit online.
Well, that's fair because, then I guess it kind of goes overboard to an extent. But I'm just saying, and again, this is just kind of my whole fear of the future thing, is that there are people who welcome the idea of retail stores everywhere closing up and everyone exclusively doing their shopping online. So you don't have to talk to people, so you don't have to interact, so you don't have to leave your house. And to me, that's dystopian. That's not something that I look forward to. I think we need the interaction with people.
If Shinola can open up a brick-and-mortar store, there's hope for all brick-and-mortar stores. Let's take a quick break before we get into the Flint Water thing. It's Turn the Radio Off on the Internet.
Turn the radio off. Mike Parsons.
No drug dealers living next to me. Pretty good deal.
Kyle Bauer.
Yeah.
People hate my podcast.com.
It's sometime in the future. The ultimate challenge. Crossfire. Crossfire. You can count. Crossfire. Crossfire. You can count. Crossfire. 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 You'll get caught up in it.
Switch off the radio. Turn off the radio. Shut down your radio system.
We'll do it live!
What?
I'll write it and we'll do it live!
Turn the radio off. There you go. I'm drunk.
All right, so we've been off a couple weeks. Did the charges in the Flint Water Crisis, did that come down last week or the week before?
I think it was last week. I don't know. The past couple weeks have blurred. I did a lot of drinking, for my birthday. And
right. Hopefully not the water in Flint.
No. Although I may have poisoned myself in one way or another.
Well, at least it was voluntary.
Yeah.
You can't drag Rick Snyder of the EPA in front of Congress and browbeat him for that.
I wish I could.
Yeah. You can browbeat him for other things. So back in January, Rick Snyder put together the team of Attorney General Bill Schuette and local attorney Todd Flood. I don't know exactly what law he practices, but he's on my station, JR, and he's on Channel 4. And they were charged with the task of investigating the Flint Water Crisis. And, of course, this made people's antennas go up because, number one, Rick Snyder put them up to this. Number two, Bill Schuette's a Republican. So already, you're looking at this with skepticism. Bill Schuette brought 3 charges against 3 employees, and their names aren't really important, and I'll explain why in a second. But essentially, it was 2 supervisors in the Michigan Department of Environmental Quality and 1 supervisor from the Flint city water plant. And you know what? Looking at this, it's kind of predictable because if you remember said hearing I just mentioned, when it was Rick Snyder and the head of the EPA, they went in front of a congressional committee, and it seemed like the parties took turns getting their licks on. If you're a Democrat, you got your licks in on Rick Snyder. If you're a Republican, you got your licks in on the head of the EPA. And for the Republican Attorney General to charge 3 people, 1 a city employee, which a lot of Republicans are putting the blame on city officials because they had this dummy vote to switch from to the Flint River for their drinking water, and 2 members of a bureaucratic environmental organization, the EPA, the Michigan Department of Environmental Quality. They're similar. They're similar organizations with similar interests and similar goals. Now, when I'm watching this, I said, okay, these guys, they seem very Patsy-esque. They seem very Fall Guys. And, of course, my cynicism said at first, okay, well, hopefully these aren't the only guys they go after. They say, oh, look, there's 3 people being charged. Everyone forget about it. Governor's in the clear. But I forgot who it was. I don't know if it was Bill Schuette or Todd Flood, who came out and said, point blank, these guys are very low on the totem pole. If this was the mafia, they'd be stooges, essentially. So what they're doing is they're charging them to put some pressure on them, hoping that they will take an agreement or a plea to help indict people higher up the food chain. And for that, Kyle, I'm ready. I'm willing to take a wait-and-see approach on this. I'm going to give Todd Flood and Bill Schuette, as suspicious as this looks, the benefit of the doubt until their investigation is complete. Because they said that this is the very beginning. There's going to be much, much more to come. So pretty much these are strategic charges brought against these 3 Fall Guys.
And I've been saying since the very beginning, the Department of Justice has to get involved in this to make sure that it's objective.
Right.
And if they don't, Snyder's going to skate away from this because as soon as those charges were brought upon, Snyder ripped off a series of tweets just saying, from the second that I heard about this,
right,
I knew that the blame was with the Department of Environmental Quality, and I want to see them prosecuted to the fullest extent. He was so amped up for this. I mean, his campaign, if you want to call it that, or his administration, had those tweets ready to go.
Oh, yeah.
The second that news broke, that there were 3 people from the DEQ brought up on charges. And, of course, he is putting it all on them and making it appear as these were the only 3 people to blame. And, he was proven right. He was vindicated.
Right.
And
honestly, I think behind the scenes, Snyder's probably shaking in his boots.
Only if the feds get involved. Because he has his boy protecting him right now. And what have I said? They would be better off getting him out now and trying to rebuild for the next election. But instead, it's no one wants to fall on the sword in the Republican Party because they're so arrogant and so drunk with power throughout the state of Michigan. And that's one of the things that always boggled my mind because, again, Schuette and Cawley,
Callie.
Or Callie.
You're talking about the deputy governor.
Right. Those 2 guys, they're 1 and 2 behind Snyder.
Yeah.
Okay. Cawley would be put into power as governor if Snyder's recalled.
Mm-hmm.
and Schuette is likely going to be running for governor next term.
Right.
Okay, so you have these guys who got to be watching, and I don't know if they think they're improving their chances. If they continue to protect him, it would make sense for Schuette to eventually go after him.
Right. See, what I'm thinking is maybe in the either if the evidence and the pressure get too great, or if he's plotting a WWE turn at an opportune time.
I would love if that were actually the case. And even if he were to prosecute Snyder, I'd still want to get me to vote for him.
Well,
it may get a lot of people to vote for him, and it may rescue the party if they do. But what I'm saying is that they're so arrogant, they can't see the forest beyond the trees. And I know I'm sounding like I'm some sort of Republican strategist here. Of course I'm not. But at the same time, I'm just trying to apply common sense to this situation. They got to get Snyder out of the way, but they don't seem like they want to.
Yeah, it's a very interesting case study because it seems like this isn't slowing Snyder down at all with things that he wants to do.
No, he's been pushing across legislation promoting legislation. Right. He hasn't signed any bills recently, but
and kind of the feeling I get on Snyder is that he's very into privatizing a lot of things.
Yeah, he wants to privatize mental health care, which will be his next great disaster.
Mental health care. Now with this bathroom choice debate in the public schools, there's certain Republicans calling for a dissolving of the Michigan State Board of Education.
Yeah, I remember hearing about that last week.
Which to me, that sounds like a convenient opening to privatize. It's just, I don't know. And look, I've got no proof of this, but I've been hearing mumbles of Snyder wanting to pretty much privatize everything.
Yeah.
He privatized food service in jail.
Yeah, and we saw what happened there. And that was another controversy.
Right. It's been such
maggots in food.
And food service workers having sex with like every inmate that walks.
Yeah, and I still see those Aramark trucks driving around.
Yeah, it's just I look, there are certain things that yes, it would benefit. It would be more beneficial to privatize. But school districts are not one of it. City water supplies, they're not that either. It's
right. And Mike, I always liked your theory too that this whole thing was going to be one big wind-up for him to privatize Michigan's water system,
right,
and sell it off to the highest bidder. That's the other thing about this too. He's saving money off of this, but he's also going to be making money off of this stuff,
right?
He's going to be getting a kickback somewhere. And, he's going to be lauded for his efforts to save the state money. But, again, when you put it in the hands of private contractors, where does the accountability really fall? Because we've seen with this, when he put it under an emergency manager, right away the accountability when something goes wrong gets clouded. The accountability for the Detroit public school system has been clouded. The accountability for the impending disaster that will be the crumbling of our mental health care system when he privatizes it, who will be held accountable for that upcoming disaster, which, from what I'm hearing, will end up taking place sometime around January 2017. I got a good pulse on this because it directly affects my job. My employer happens to be conservative, so he's saying it means we're all going to get raises.
Yeah.
No, actually, it means we're probably going to end up getting laid off.
Yeah.
I know how this works.
There's certain things.
Snyder does too. He's not personally affected by it, and he gets to duck accountability for it. You've seen he has not been willing to be culpable for something that he is culpable for, and his party's keeping him from taking any blame.
Well, and it kind of seems it's weird because it seems like I first noticed this with Chris Brown. It's kind of a weird comparison, Rick Snyder and Chris Brown. But just follow me for a second.
Okay.
It seems like the best way to deal with a PR crisis is to just go on with business as usual. If you remember, when Chris Brown, he was the most hated man on earth when those pictures of Rihanna came out after he beat the crap out of her. Well, Chris Brown, I'm not even sure if he apologized. He just kept going, kept making music. A year and a half later, it's forgotten.
Except in Canada, where they banned him from coming in and performing in the country.
Good.
Yeah.
Rick Snyder, this Flint Water Crisis. There's some accountability there, if not for the mere fact that he was the talking about running government as a business and customer service. He was the CEO of the company, which was Michigan.
He was also the CEO of Gateway, and that didn't go well either.
Right. So, Rick Snyder has accountability for, if not for anything else, he was the head man in charge. But you know what? He's slipping it. He'll address it when he has to, but he just keeps on business as usual. And Donald Trump, you just, hey, all right, hey, that was a controversy. I don't care about that controversy. I'm on to the next thing.
Really, I mean, because when you look at the whole food service issue, that was another one where he really got away from that too. Like,
I think because the Detroit thing came so soon after, and the Detroit thing was such an unlikely victory with Kevin Orr and getting him out of bankruptcy.
Exactly, that was one thing. That was one emergency manager that went well for him.
That wiped a lot of stuff clean. And you know what? If it wasn't for this Flint Water Crisis, that would have been his legacy, and I think that could have propelled him to higher offices if he wanted him.
Yeah, there are people talking about him possibly running for president.
Yeah, Karl Rove said it on Fox News. Charles Krauthammer, one of the two.
There was also, what's up with Charles Krauthammer's face?
I think he was
he
dead.
Attacked by a dog at some point?
No, I think he was dead for a while and reanimated.
Oh, that makes sense.
Yeah,
there's just something not right about him. Anyway, as I was saying, yeah, and also not privatizing, making the opposite, making Belle Isle a state park was also a great move. I mean, if you go to Belle Isle now, the improvement it's just completely flipped.
Yeah.
How beautiful Belle Isle is now. I mean, I always liked Belle Isle before, but now everyone likes Belle Isle.
Right, and that was something.
I'll just put it that way.
Right, and that was something that benefited from state control.
Except the black people who keep getting harassed by the police. On Belle Isle. They don't like it.
You said, if we go, we're fine.
Yeah, well, we're fine, right. But Belle Isle has definitely improved, though. The conditions on Belle Isle have improved since it was made a state park, and that was another good move by Snyder. I mean, he's done some good things, but I think when you're talking about a water crisis that he had the oversight on, and you got 12 people dying of Legionnaire's disease. You got thousands of children with lead poisoning. It's going to lead to developmental delays. Kind of hand in glove. Now that he wants to privatize the mental health care system, I guess he ultimately will be responsible for those kids he poisoned.
Yeah, you're right, because they'll have to go into that full circle. I got to say, Kyle, for most of his first term, I was a Snyder guy. I thought that he had a pretty boring first term. There was marginal improvement in the state economy. What really started to turn it for me was the lame duck session of 2012.
Oh, that was awful. That was a nightmare. I still go back to that a lot of times where
there was that election. I think it was Proposal 2. It was to write right to work into the state constitution. And it did not pass. And Snyder was saying the whole time, it's not on my agenda. I don't even want to see it across my desk. Maybe less than a week later, in a lame duck session, he made Michigan a right-to-work state, taking the power out of the unions.
Not only were these lame duck sessions, but they were really shady midnight sessions.
Here's the thing, Kyle. I'm not smart enough to know if right-to-work is good for a state or bad for a state. I hear
it's good for a state, but bad for the worker.
Right, and you know what? There's tons of evidence to show that. There's also a ton of evidence to say the other way. But the way that it was done is what kind of made me look at Rick Snyder's side-eyed. And then I said, hey, okay, well, this Detroit thing happened. He's a bit of a snake, but at least he's effective and he gets stuff done. And then, of course, the Flint Water Crisis happened. And Kyle, I'm not big on conspiracy theories, and I'm not even saying that these are connected. I'm still willing to believe that these are coincidences. But it's worth noting, there have been 2 mysterious deaths with people who were very close to the Flint Water Crisis. First, one of the first women to file a lawsuit against the state and the city of Flint in the Flint Water Crisis was shot April 21st. Was when the article was published on MLive. Now, I'm willing to, at least for now, say this is circumstantial because...
and I believe somebody was brought into custody for that, but it could also be another fall person.
Right. And look, if she was affected by the Flint water crisis, chances are she didn't live in a great part of town because one of the telltale signs that you had lead in your water is you had an old house, and those houses were in low-income areas. So she may have lived in a rough neighborhood or whatever, and it might just be coincidental. Also, the
water foreman.
Yeah, water foreman. He was found dead on April 16th. They don't have any autopsies yet, and like I said, Kyle, there's a lot of people out there screaming, saying that these are connected. I'm not willing to go that far, but it's worth noting, I think.
It is worth noting, and it's very shady that two people who could be instrumental in testifying against Rick Snyder in a civil case or possibly a criminal case, those are two witnesses gone.
Right. And like I said, I don't think Rick Snyder purposely poisoned the city of Flint, I don't think he had these people murdered. But
I don't think he purposely poisoned the city of Flint, and I know it would be a reach to kind of say that he had some involvement in this. I'm just saying, man.
It's an interesting wrinkle in the story.
I'm just saying, and you don't know, you just don't know right now. Because, right now, I think everything is off the table with this guy. Or everything's on the table is what I meant to say.
Nothing's off the table is what you're saying.
Yeah, I think his way of ducking this, his way of snaking out of accountability for it, the fact that he hasn't resigned, the fact that he's continued with business as usual, except for that whole 30 days of drinking Flint water promise that he already ducked out on.
Well, and also, he waited until reports have come that Flint drinking water is now relatively safe again. Then he decided to do it for 30 days.
And then he did it for 5 days, and then he goes over to Europe and doesn't do it in Europe.
Yeah.
But the point remains...
He should drink that water without the proper vaccinations.
This whole administration is so drunk on power and so insulated by years of gerrymandering, by a couple very impulsive election cycles, that really, I don't know if he'll ever be held accountable, and I'm to the point where I want to completely rule out that someone in his administration, not saying him directly, but someone in his administration might have had something to do with these deaths. I'm just saying these are two witnesses in a civil that could testify against him in a civil trial or a criminal trial, and
I'm with you. You know what? I'm 99.99% certain these are coincidences, but maybe they're not.
One hell of a coincidence.
We got to go. PeopleLikeMyPodcast.com, PendulumPodcast.com, CaveRadioBroadcasting.com. See you next week. Thanks for listening, Paul.